Alright, everything's up and running. Good morning. Today, I want to talk about something a little different than I normally would. I don't typically talk about stuff that's immediately in the news. Specifically, I might give some allusion to it, but I don't really talk about specific stories. But today I do want to. Because something came across my phone last night, which is concerning to me, and on the surface of it doesn't seem that bad. But then as I read the article, it became much more concerning. So, this is something that I think we need to think about as a society, especially what we're doing to young people. I've mentioned this in a previous video, how we are over-shaming people and the repercussions that can have. And I think this is another good example of that. But it's a more systemic kind of weird, I don't know, realistically it is oppression of ideas. And it's just very concerning to me. So I'll go ahead and give a little bit on the article so we can all be on the same page. So the story is this girl from the University of Kansas who is in a sorority, and I haven't really looked up much about the sorority. Kappa Alpha Theta. Her name is Katherine Lauer, and she was suspended from her sorority for a social media post. And now I understand that sororities have, or all Greek organizations have, standards, code of ethics, whatever. I get that, and I think that's fair. I think if you voluntarily sign up for any organization, they have rules set in place that you have to follow those rules. The problem here is she didn't violate any of the rules as stated. The post she made was not really inflammatory. I didn't think. I mean, I assume some people will, because a lot of people are pretty weak, for lack of a better term now, are offended by everything. But anyway, Katherine makes a post on her own social media, not a sorority account or anything, and as she just shares a tweet from Candace Owens, which some of you will know who that is. But Candace Owens is I don't really know the best way to describe her, but she's kind of a conservative, she works with Turning Point USA, but she's kind of a conservative figurehead. I don't know. She speaks with them a lot and has been looked to by a lot of people for sort of conservative opinions. And so anyway, Candace Owens made this post that Katherine shared, and the post was, quote, "Black Lives Matter is an organization of white men using the faces of dead black people to raise millions of dollars toward electing white Democrats into positions of power. It is the most flagrantly racist organization in America," end quote. So that was a quote of Candace Owens, not of Katherine Lauer. She just reposted it. Now, for that post, she was suspended from her sorority, which you might think, oh, who cares? It's a sorority, whatever. I mean, I did not do the whole Greek life thing. It wasn't for me. However, this girl made the decision to do that. And along with that, it's not just a club. So she had to pay money, I'm sure. There are dues involved with this, usually pretty expensive ones. There's a sacrifice to be made. You sacrifice your time to be a part of these meetings. Some of the stuff they do is pretty intense as far as the time commitments. And I knew a lot of people in sororities and fraternities who, I don't think sororities were quite as bad as fraternities, but some people's grades suffered because they had to make a decision to do this or to study. If they had stuff like Rush where they're up all night, So anyway, this girl's made some commitment to this organization, and you would think that the organization has made some commitment to her as to how they will behave, but they don't. So she put something conservative on her own social media. Again, it's not like she was in charge of their social media page. She did her own thing. Well, they suspend her, and they openly say that she has not broken a bylaw or rule, but have had conduct unbecoming of a member of Theta, as values that you have been making public through social media and text communications went against Theta's values and disrespected women of our chapter. So there's nothing about women in this post. It's a post by a woman shared by a woman. And so they decide, because this is unbecoming, they're going to suspend her from this organization that she's paid to be a part of and committed her time to. And so whatever, you can be like, you know what, it's their thing. I guess they can do what they want, which I guess there's some truth to that. I would agree more if she had not paid money to be a part of it, and if she had actually broken a rule. She has not broken a rule that they can cite. But it gets more concerning when now, to get rid of her suspension, she has to, for one, they're going to watch all of her social media posts now. There's no due process here. She will be under supervision of this group of people, presumably other girls her age, looking at her social media, and they will decide what's appropriate or not, even though they have no standard for what's appropriate, because she hasn't broken a standard, but somehow she has. And on top of that, they want her to speak to specific people in the sorority for some type of, what to me sounds like, re-education. And if you're familiar with things like communist China, Soviet Russia, socialist Germany, that would be Nazi Germany, socialist Germany, there's always a re-education plan. If you look at Pol Pot, you look at Vietnam, Cambodia, anytime they do these types of things where they want control over their population, there's always a re-education. Like, you're thinking the wrong way, and we need to teach this stuff out of you. And let's see. I want to see exactly what it is they said in here. I forget the actual phrasing, but what they say sounds exactly like re-education to me. And I think that's really scary. Now, if this was a one-off thing, you could chalk this up to kind of a fanatical sorority leader who is really trying to virtue signal super hard, which I do think that's probably a big part of this. I don't know the person that leads sorority. I don't know this panel of people, but the fact of the matter is what Candace Owens said and what Katherine Lauer retweeted is, parts of it are absolutely objectively accurate. They are raising a ton of money. It is led predominantly by a lot of white people, and they're making a lot of money off of it. When you see like who actually runs the Black Lives Matter organization, and this girl and Candace Owens both had a problem with the fact that none of the money that's being gathered by Black Lives Matter goes to, like black schools or black communities. It just isn't happening. A lot of it's going towards political campaigns. So, whether you agree with Black Lives Matter or not, the fact of the matter is this girl was, struck down, her opinion struck down because it didn't agree with someone around her. Now, colleges are becoming more and more this way. I think it's the antithesis of what colleges are for. I think you go to learn, of course, in your classes, but I think you're learning more about the world than you are in class. You're learning how to operate in a diverse world and how to get along with other people. And you're learning new things. You've gotten away from your parents, and you've gotten away from your normal circle, and you're learning about the world and the people in it. Well, if you have a different idea and that gets shut down and you get removed from your social circles because of it, and it's something non-violent, non-threatening, then I think we have a huge problem. So here we go. Here's what they say about her re-education, I'm going to call it. As part of terms of her probation outlined in a letter on Monday, Lauer was asked to take a social media posting holiday for a week. They have no authority to do that. Okay. And for a week to do a personal reflection and cleanse. Where have we heard of cleansing before? And to watch a video selected by the sorority's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Maybe they need to read their own materials. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. So aren't we excluding this girl because of her opinion? She was also instructed to have an, quote, open dialogue with the Kappa Theta Alpha Chief Operating Officer, Allie Dew, to get a, quote, broader education of America today, end quote. Now, do you think they asked Katherine what her education was like on the world today? Or do you think they saw a social media post and decided that she's ignorant, she doesn't know what she's talking about, she's not woke enough for them? So Allie Dew apparently is the authority. So we're going to talk to Allie. You need to go get your broader education from Allie. Okay. So you need to do your cleanse. You're not allowed to share opinions on social media. You need to take a holiday for a week and then go get your education from Allie. I think this stuff's pretty scary. I mentioned on a post last night, I posted something about this. And it reminds me of what we see on college campuses now, whether it's nonsense like this, whether it's, Antifa, whether it's people shouting down difference of opinions when a speaker comes. It reminds me of the Red Guard. And we have seen people injured. It'd be one thing if they're just yelling at each other, but the fact that people are getting hurt, people are getting attacked, is a whole different kettle of fish. And if you're not familiar, the Red Guard was a group of students, well, not like an individual group. So it was started by students in 1966, I believe, in communist China, when Mao was around. And they were a group of Maoists, and they're children. And they just essentially gathered this authority that they determined was given to them by the doctrines of Mao Zedong, mass murderer, an authoritarian, and controlled their schools, whether it be high schools or colleges. And their stories of very severe instances of violence and essentially imprisonment in colleges, where they were imprisoning other students and teachers because they did not have the right thought process, because they didn't blindly follow Mao Zedong and Maoism, which is essentially Marxism, communism, socialism, whatever. And now we see it again. So it only lasted about 2 years. It became extremely violent, and they had a lot of infighting, which we see with groups like this all the time, because they're just angry. So if anybody gets in their way, including people that are supposedly on their side, they'll just try to destroy them because they just want power, really. And that all has echoes of this for me when I see that kind of stuff going on. And I would encourage you to look up the Red Guard and learn a little bit about them, because it hasn't been that long ago. 1966 to 1968. They were disbanded pretty quickly because they got so unruly, where Mao actually encouraged them to, I think he said, like, retire into the countryside or something like that. They were never punished. I mean, they were absolutely breaking the law, but they were doing it in the name of the doctrine, which is what we see now. We see people that are breaking the law in the name of what they think is good or whatever. And there's no repercussion for it, because the powers that be say, like, oh, well, this is what we want anyway. And that's kind of what you see on college campuses now. Like, you can shout people down as long as you're of a certain opinion. And, it's considered justifiable or reasonable because, well, we don't want that type of opinion of this speaker here anyway, so we're willing to kind of turn a blind eye to these infractions because it improves our agenda or forwards our agenda, which is not good, because anytime you do something like that, when we start breaking the rules for stuff like that, it always comes back to haunt you, because then as people get more and more radical, then the people that were in the beginning of this sort of revolution or whatever don't appear that radical, and now they're dissenters and whatever else. It's nonsense, but it's been repeated over and over and over, and people, unfortunately, don't do one of the things that I mentioned going to college for: learn. All these people should be taking history classes, which I didn't love history when I was younger. I'm very interested in it now, because the more I learn about history, the more I see us making all the mistakes that we made in the past. I don't mean just as a country, but as a race, being the human race, that humans have made these same mistakes all over the place, regardless of nationality, ethnicity, whatever. It takes a few different ingredients, and we have some of them now, but we just do it over and over and over. So it's really disheartening to see things like this when you have, we saw demonstrably how dangerous something like a red guard or this authoritarian control of ideas is. And we're seeing it, of course, we've seen it in the media for a long time, and we see it more on social media just this week, where certain ideas have been banned on social media, like certain articles are banned. Wow. And we have the audacity, a lot of people, I'm off this page, but a lot of people still have the audacity to see stuff that goes on in China and be like, oh my gosh, how could they do that over there? What, you mean like censoring ideas and censoring social media or censoring the internet? Here we are. So, back to Katherine Lauer. This girl has been left kind of in the lurch. She doesn't know what's going to happen to her. She'll find out in a few days. There's really no way for them to make an objective decision about her future with the sorority, because there's no rules that she's broken. So it's totally up to the opinion of this group of people who clearly, by reading the article, it would seem that they kind of have it out for her. My guess is that they haven't liked this girl, and they've just been waiting for an excuse to suspend her, and they saw Candace Owens, and, boom, there you go. And I don't think, I've watched some of Candace Owens stuff, I don't think she's really a radical person. I don't think it's crazy to post something from her, but, this is where we are. Anything that is not really in the camp of one group, then it's considered radical. Anything conservative is radical now. And, it's all a lot of this is very centered around Catherine's race, which she's white. Candace Owens is black. But for instance, she was told, as a white woman, it was not her place to state who is racist and who is not, referring to President Trump. So since she's white, she doesn't get an opinion. Cool. Nothing racist about that. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Haven't we done this before? Didn't we say that an entire race didn't get a vote and weren't people, or were 3/5 of a person, and their opinion didn't count? Like, didn't we already do this? Why are we doing this again? So stupid. This is the stuff I'm talking about. Read your damn history books. It's incredible. I talked in another video about shaming people. This isn't good. This kind of stuff where we're outright saying you don't get to have an opinion because you're a white woman. We need to cleanse you and re-educate you. What do you think that's doing to her? Do you think that when she gets out of this, she'll be like, oh, the fog is lifted. I have seen the error of my ways. No. I'll be surprised if she is not pushed way further right now and becomes like a figurehead for some conservative movement. I don't mean like a radical movement. I don't know saying that she's going to go out and be dangerous, but I'm saying they've martyred her. And I don't know that she shouldn't be, but the thing is, if their goal is to suppress this conservative idea, they've just exemplified how insane this whole ideology is, that we have to suppress all these people because they have ideas that we don't like. There should be some sort of flow of information between these people where we can all get better. I've talked about this a good bit lately, where the problem with suppressing ideas and conversations is that people can't say things out loud and as silly as it sounds, I'm going to say this, in a safe place. And I don't mean like I need a safe place where I need to, somebody needs to give me a puppy and I need to cry in the middle of campus. I'm talking about being able to share ideas in a way where you can have a flow of information and have a little bit of leeway, like have a little bit of breathing room. So if you say something just because you're young or you're working out some new ideas in your head, that you can say it and not be canceled or kicked out of your sorority because you're just batting this idea around, and somebody can say, hey, I don't know about that. Maybe we should delve into that a little further. It seems like the stuff maybe you're talking about here might be a little concerning for whatever reason. And then you can have a conversation and they might go, oh yeah, I didn't think about it that way, or whatever. But the idea that somebody has an idea and expresses it and we need to shout it down and shut them out is just insane. And it makes people crazy. It does not. I've never seen, in my video about ideology and how to persuade people, I was talking about I've never seen this happen to one person and them come out on the other side and be like, oh, I totally believe what the people who shut me down and demonize me believe now. With the exception of like weird brainwashing, I can think of like Vietnam, where people were imprisoned and brainwashed. And also, other more general cases of Stockholm Syndrome, where people are taken, captured, kidnapped, whatever, prisoners of war, and they're just, again, brainwashed. So I guess that's what they're trying to do to her, to cleanse and re-educate. It sounds like brainwashing to me, but I sort of doubt it's going to work because these are children and they don't know what they're doing. So yeah, anyway, yeah, Lauer is set to be reevaluated during the meeting on October 26th, which she's got about 5 days. So, oh God, this is all disappointing. So I'll be interested to see what happens to that. But I don't know. Tell me what you think. If you think this is reasonable that she has been kicked out of fraternity for a pretty innocuous post. I obviously don't think it's reasonable, but I think it's very scary, a sign of things to come. And I think it's a really good showing that people are just incredibly weak now, that they can't, for one, that they couldn't look at that post and not feel so enraged that they have to kick this girl out of her sorority. But two, that they aren't a strong enough character to know that there's a person out there that they disagree with and just go on about their life. Like, why does it matter? Why is this girl so important that we have to demonize her and kick her out of this group because we don't agree with her? Just keep going. To me, this is what I've heard another person talk about, call it social justice jihadis. People say social justice warriors, but this is a social justice jihadi where you're actively seeking things out to try to destroy. And so they found it. I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure they were keeping an eye on this girl, and they finally found one thing that didn't align with their ideology, and so they want to destroy her for it, but it hadn't made them look good. So think about it. Appreciate you watching the video. Tell me what you think. Check the article out. Like I said, the girl's name's Katherine Lauer. She goes to University of Kansas, and the sorority is Kappa Alpha Theta. And who knows, maybe there's more to the story that I don't know, but I've read the article a few times now to cover everything I can, and from what I understand, this is pretty insane and pretty dangerous to keep going down this type of road. So, tell me what you think. Depending on where you're watching, like, follow, comment, echo, share, all that stuff. I'm recording these live Sunday through Wednesday, 9 a.m. on Twitch, twitch.tv/Brooks C. Brown, if you want to be a part of that. Instagram is Brooks Brown Coaching, and YouTube, you can look up Brooks Brown. You'll find my channel on there, where a lot of these videos will end up being posted, but you can also see them on the video of the day on Twitch and other places. So again, thank you, and I will talk to you next time.